Welcome to the Hound Talk podcast. We're here to talk everything hounds, specifically when it comes to big game. Mountain lions, bears, and bobcats. Along with the game we pursue, we're going to talk about the dogs we run and the families behind them. Enjoy some good conversation between houndsmen as we dive into what makes us live this life we live and how it all started. I'm your host, Dustin Clark. This podcast is sponsored by Cold Strike, a houndsman-owned business that was built by a family for families. Now let's get into it. What's going on, guys? We're back with another episode, and with me I got Patrick Weimer from South Dakota. How you doing tonight, Patrick?
Oh, not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you hunt?
My name is Patrick Weimer. I'm out of South Dakota, western side, and we run primarily lions and bobcats and raccoons in the summertime out here. I've recently been going out for some bear hunts. I drew Idaho this year, so that was a good opportunity. I made 4 trips out there this year, and we've got bears every time, so it's been pretty fun seeing the different side of things that we don't normally see over in the Midwest or part of the U.S. where we don't have bears and that whatnot. So it's been enjoyable.
Oh, I bet. I agree. I enjoy bears. When I first got into hounds, we bear hunted a little, but never lived in good bear country, so I always had to travel for it. So once we relocated down to southern Utah, I really got deep into it to where I hunted bears as much, if not more, than I did lions, just because I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. I can definitely see how that happens. The weather's better. It's nicer on the family. You know, whenever we're chasing lions up here, you know, a lot of times we're well into the negatives. So getting kids out to that and that type of stuff, it makes it tough unless it's a nice day out. They're not wanting to go.
Yeah, that's what I found with my kids is, you know, my older ones have been to a few lion trees. So is my younger boy. My youngest daughter hasn't yet because she's like, nah, I don't like the cold.
It's cold.
my wife was the same way. She saw one lion in a tree on a good day, and she's like, I'm good. I don't need to go again. But they enjoy the bears. I mean, we camp, and they enjoy the warm weather, and I think that makes a big difference for kids for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, this year running bear is the first time that I've been able to get my family out under the tree.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, so and we made several trips that were just designated towards them. You know, the first one I brought the girls out, and we went and hunted with a friend out of Idaho, and he just had a baby too. So we had 2 little ones right in the same age, and then he's got 2 younger ones that are the same age as my daughter. So we had 3 that were under 4 and 2 that were under 2 months that we made to the bear tree with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's a lot of memories to just make all the trips and all that worth it when you can do it that way and the kids enjoy it.
And that's the crazy thing is because like I didn't harvest a bear. I had no desire to harvest a bear. And a lot of people look at me and they're like, well, why didn't you kill one? Well, that's not my trophy.
Yeah.
My trophy was getting my family under the tree and getting them out and seeing why dad's always gone.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I get it. Like I talk to a lot of guys, and especially when it comes to lions, like I've been running hounds for the better part of 16 years, and I've still never killed a lion. I've killed a bear, I've killed a bobcat, but I've never killed a lion. And I've treed, I mean, I couldn't count how many I've treed. It's a decent amount, but it's just, I had the desire when I first started, but it quickly faded. It
goes away.
Yeah. It was just like, I'd rather just catch the sucker with my dogs and take pictures of it, because if I leave it, I know I can come back in a few days and try and catch it again or catch it the next week. Whereas
that's what I tell people a lot, you know, because in South Dakota we're trying to, you know, change the idea behind what houndsmen are, and I more or less explain that we build a relationship with these cats.
Yep.
Because they stay in the same area, they're not going to take off. I can go find the same female here every couple of days and know she's going to be around, or you know, vice versa. And I'd rather just see her go, see how she's doing, and wave goodbye and see you later.
Oh, exactly.
I've actually never killed a lion over my own dogs. I
Yeah.
killed a lion in, I think it was 2019, and that's when I got into dogs.
Hmm.
And it wasn't over my own. And the good friend of mine that uh, I was hunting with, when we got done, he's like, "Man, this is gonna be a whole lot more fun when you get dogs now." And it wasn't 4 or 5 months later. I had a pack started.
I know. I
Right.
understand that completely.
And
But yeah.
I've jumped into it full swing. There hasn't, I've tried to surround myself with a lot of people out of state more than anything, and get that knowledge from anybody and everybody that I can.
Oh yeah.
I don't listen to one single individual. I've learned something from every houndsman that I've been around, and
Mhm.
everybody that ran with. I've picked up new things and different things, and it's rounded my dogs out, and I'm starting to figure it out and kind of see where I want to be with my dogs. They all do great, but I've as a first generation houndsman, it's been a learning curve, and I've never bought a started dog, finished dog. I've always bought pups.
Yep.
Well, no. So I picked up my first female from Chase Oliver out of Utah, and
Yep.
she was a year old, and he'd had her to a couple of trees, and just slightly started, but enough where I had to put the work into her, and I really drove into her as much as I could until I picked up another dog,
Oh yeah.
and she kind of has taken everybody else, and we've been able to figure it out from there.
No. Yeah, that's I understand that. So when I went on my first lion hunt, we didn't hardly even trail anything, and I had a dog lined up before I even got home. And I got that dog as a yearling that was they had tried starting her. She really just didn't have much to it. She had good lines, and I got her and I poured a lot of time into her. I was just barely married, didn't have a kid yet, and I was working a job where I was off of work by 2 o'clock every day. So
Yep,
I was just pouring time into her, and I got her to where she was decent dog and just kept feeding pups in from there. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
get it. I get it. I've only ever bought one dog, and it was a partnership with a buddy, and we only had it for a few months and decided the partnership wasn't our thing and we sold it. So
Wasn't working.
other than that, everything I get is all pups. And that's what it is for me is I like taking a pup and seeing what kind of dog I can make out of it and watching that
Yeah,
pup, watching it switch its flip and watching it pick up and just figure out what its instincts and what it was bred to do. That's the fun part.
absolutely.
So yeah, I truly enjoy that and enjoy the dogs, and that's kind of like why I wanted to start this is to talk to other houndsmen, get their insights, and just see how other people do it, and hear stories and talk about dogs. Because I mean, let's be honest, what houndsman doesn't like to sit and bullshit about
Yeah, right.
dogs?
Yeah. Well, we were up just exercising today, and I ran into an old rancher up there, and he was catching cows, and he sat there in a side by side, and I bet I talked to him and his wife for probably an hour and a half on the side of the road. And I just told him, I said, "Man, I better let you go, or we're gonna be here all day."
Yep. Oh, exactly. And
So,
that's how it is. Like when we run into other houndsmen on the mountain, unless we've got a race going and I know I got to get somewhere, I'll be talking and finally my kids in the back seat will be like, "Dad, it's time to go
we gotta
hunting.
go.
Like we need to go do something or take us back to camp and then you can come back and talk."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so what you told us a little bit about the first dog you got. What else are you running?
So I've got three sisters that I got out of Chase, and
Mhm.
then I've got a red female that I actually picked her up out of New Mexico, but she comes out of Zaccardi stuff, and she's been
Okay.
doing really great. Uh, I sent her out to Idaho with a buddy the first year I got her. I kind of traded some things, some dog hauls, and he took her in, and she took to bear really well.
Mm.
So I've really enjoyed her in that aspect, and she came around the cats just as good.
Yep.
Uh, and then I picked up a dog from Stephen Lee out of California, and he's been really doing great. He's still young, but I basically relied on him all of bear season.
Wow.
I was using him as a strike dog, trusting him on it. We were catching bears with him, and he turned a year over bear season.
Mhm.
And I think it was May. April, might have been April. I think it was
Yep.
April. He turned a year, and he's something different than what I'm used to.
Mhm.
Up here, we primarily run snow, so we're finding the track, dropping dogs on a track. So we don't do a lot of rigging or striking or any of that nature. But I've kind of leaned more that way and starting to allow my dogs to be the ones that show me the track.
Yep.
That dog is actually bringing my other dogs into it as well. They're learning off of him at this point, and he's the
Mhm.
youngest dog I got. But I've been really happy with him.
Oh yeah, you can't complain about that. I mean, it's crazy. Like I when you have a young dog that for some reason is just a little more natural
Yeah,
at
that's it.
at bringing out his instincts and natural at just what he does, and so they excel at it. And it's crazy how that will feed over into these 3, 4, 5-year-old dogs that it's in them, but it wasn't quite as natural to them. And so once another dog starts to do it, it'll bring it out of them. But it's just crazy how different maturity, even though he's a younger dog, they were able to rely on him and trust him enough to
Yeah,
start to bring in their skills as well. That's awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's something special, especially at a year old, to be relying on a dog like that. That's I mean, it's hard for any houndsman to trust a yearling, but to
Yeah,
you know, but I mean, at some point you just have to, and
and,
you
and
have
it,
to trust them until they prove you wrong.
yeah, and I can't say honestly that maybe he wasn't doing right every time, but it
Mhm.
was enough times that we were ended up successful with what he was doing.
Oh yeah, well definitely. I mean, I don't think I've ever expected a year-old dog to do everything right. I
Yeah.
mean, they're still a puppy.
Oh yeah, that's all
You
he
know,
is. Big old dumb
yeah,
puppy.
e exactly. They're still, a puppy in their brain, and that at that point they're not fully mature to where, yeah, a coyote's gonna smell great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 3-year-olds that have still every once in a while will give a coyote a run for its money when you
Yeah.
think they're out of the bad habits, they'll prove you
Oh,
wrong
I've
again.
got I've got one that's old enough that she should know better, and I bet I could sell her as a high dollar squirrel dog down south.
Yeah. Oh, I've had some box rocker rigs on a squirrel that runs across the road. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But so
If you haven't, you're lying.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I know some of the best houndsmen I know. Every once in a while, will still have a good trash race, whether it's the good dogs that start it or not. That sometimes they'll join in until they realize what's going on, and then they'll
Yeah,
tattle
yeah,
on the other ones. But wow, for sure. That's pretty sweet that young dog just stepped up and really was kind of just taking the show over. That's pretty
yeah.
cool.
And I'm excited. We're just getting into lion season here, and I'm excited to see how he does. Every single tree that we made last year for lions. He was sitting there with
Hmm.
them. He wasn't treeing or anything like that, but he was making the races. He was sniffing things out, and then this bear season, I think it just kind of put him over.
Oh
So he's
yeah. So when you're starting, I mean, everybody does it different. When you're starting these line tracks, when you find them in the snow, are you the type that you'll just kind of open the box, walk them down the road, and let them all start it, or are you starting a single dog first and feeding into it? How are you doing it?
so when I first started out, it was always just, well, let's just dump the box and see what happens. That type of stuff. But I've kind of forced myself to go back on allowing a dog to start.
Yep.
And I might not always use the same dog, but I'll start one and then let the rest go.
Okay.
Obviously let them get it figured out. And a lot of times we hunt with a group or whatever, and we'll get together and say, "Hey, well, you let this dog out, I'll let this dog go," and we'll figure out the three that we want to start, and we'll let them get everything rolling, and then we'll throw everybody in.
Okay. No, I understand that. I was the same way when I first started. I was like, "Oh, let's pour it to
Yeah.
it." And
Well,
with a
and I
good
think
with a good
it's
snow
fun.
track, yeah.
It's fun, but
Oh yeah.
I started to realize that maybe I wasn't doing my dogs justice doing that because there was definitely dogs that were just following to the tree.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
allowing them to actually work it out on their own has really helped them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. See, and I'm one that definitely I got so reliant on my good dogs that I had a hard time giving the pups a chance because I
Yeah,
didn't want them to screw it up. I'm like,
yeah, you
nah,
did not want to catch it.
yeah, I want to catch this thing, so I'm going to give myself the best shot. But then I started to realize where I had a real lack in these like 2-year-old dogs that I had never really given the chance to prove themselves. They were good dogs. They would always end up at the tree. They would contribute to the race, but I had never pushed them to really be a phenomenal dog because I was kind of crippling them in my
Yeah,
own sense because I wasn't giving them the chance. So I had to start to really force myself to keep the good dogs on the box or in the box while I gave these younger dogs a chance to figure it
yeah,
out. Then if they didn't figure it out, I'd kick the old dog out and go for a walk and we'd figure it out. But
yeah,
it
exactly.
just it was a learning curve that I had to learn, not them.
Yep, for sure.
So yeah, I was just curious, and that's I'm the same way with running bears. We'll rig, and I had the same bad habit that I had to start the good dog, and so I finally got to where I was starting a good dog with a young dog, and then
Yep.
once we got that going 3 or 4 times, then I'd kick the young dog first, and if he wouldn't range out far enough, then I'd kick the old dog out, and it's
Yeah,
just I that was a lesson I had to learn that it's not a hard lesson, but it for me it was a struggle because I'm like, no, I got my kids here. I want to catch this bear. I don't want to go on a stupid trash race. So it was a line I had to learn to walk and had to really change how I was perceiving things.
yeah, I totally get that.
So it's just different, and everybody does it different. I know some guys that they won't start just one dog. They'll drive up the road a couple hundred yards, let dogs out, and walk it down the track, and they'll or walk back to the track, and they'll just let the dogs find
Yeah,
it on
let them
their
find
own.
it.
Yep.
And
So
that's what I guess that's what I liked about this whole bear season because we weren't, you know, with the way we hunt lions, we find a track and dump some dogs. With
yep.
this bear, they had to show me where it was at,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
and you know all about that, but
Yeah.
it's just a totally different way of hunting and something that I wasn't personally used to.
Yeah, it's fun. It definitely gets your blood going when you're half asleep driving down the road and the whole truck erupts, and and I got to the point where I try to find the track when I rig. Like I really try hard to make sure I'm not going backwards, but sometimes you just can't see it, and you got to kick a dog out and
Yeah,
let them find it, show you where it's at, and if you still can't see it, you got to trust them. Sometimes you go
yeah,
backwards,
yeah,
sometimes you don't. It just it's the nature of the beast in itself. I mean, I'll hike as far as I can trying to find it and make sure I'm going the right way, but sometimes you just can't.
yeah. Just gotta trust them.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so do you do very many bobcats up there?
So we have some bobcats. I mean, they're they're better on the prairie than they are on up in the hills right now.
Okay.
Our population's kind of in the decline. Game and Fish here changed a few different things around, and hopefully that'll let them bounce out a little bit. But yeah, we run a good amount of them
Hmm.
every year. More over into Wyoming.
Okay.
Their population's not too terrible over there, where we can get a few races going.
Hmm.
Uh, but we do have them here, and that's actually so with South Dakota. That's the only thing that we can run in our national forest with our hounds. So we have lions, we have a lion season, but we can't run lions with dogs. We can hunt them without them, but we're not allowed to. So in February, well, I think it's December 26th to February 15th, I believe, is our bobcat season.
Okay.
And that's when we get to go in the woods out here. Well, you know,
Hmm.
and we can hunt them outside on the prairie with lions and that type of stuff. But it's just a little, it's I don't know. It's hard to explain to a lot of people because when you tell people that you can hunt lions but you can't hunt them with dogs, they're just like, well, how the heck do you hunt them?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. I mean, that's not a real efficient way.
no, it's not. And they do harvest cats. We've got so our quota here is, and this is for the whole Black Hills, and that's the only area that they manage. We have lions throughout our entire state, but they
Mm-hmm.
only manage the Black Hills, what they call the Fire Protection District. And with
Okay.
that, we can shoot 40 females or 60 lions total.
Wow.
So a lot of the times our average throughout the year or throughout the season is around 26 of those lions are generally female.
Okay.
So, and it works for them. It works for our department because they're trying to manage the numbers as a whole, and taking out that breeding population is what keeps their numbers jiving.
Yeah, for them.
On the houndsman side of it, we don't like to see it
No.
for obvious reasons.
No, no. And I mean, I dealt with that in Utah, and where I'm in Arizona now, a lot of these have like a female sub quota.
Yeah.
And if the sub quota gets hit, the unit shuts down. So it definitely
Yep.
makes people think about killing females.
So our rules are, how do they go? You can't shoot, or you can't pursue anything running in pairs.
Hmm.
You can't harvest a lion with spots, and in the areas that we can run hounds, which is just our state park, and they're a limited draw, you can't shoot a lactating female.
Yep.
But on the other side of that, it's perfectly okay to shoot a lactating female outside of the park because they know that you can't identify that. Because
Yeah.
seeing a cat on the ground, you can't tell me what the heck it is.
Oh, heck no. Most people
Yeah.
aren't educated enough to know it all.
You know? And we run into the issues of them harvesting younger cats and females and that type of stuff. And like I said, I don't dog on those guys at all because they're getting out, they're hunting, and that's the way we're allowed to do it at this time.
Yeah. Yep.
I hope that in the future we'll be able to change that.
Yeah.
It's something that it's how they're able to do it. So I can't
Yeah.
tell them, hey, you can't hunt this way, and then you tell me how I can't hunt this way. I like an open opportunity for everybody.
Oh, I agree, and every state's different. Every state has its different battles for sure. I mean, you look at what Utah used to be to what Utah is now. I mean, it's a whole shit show there now with the whole state being
Yeah,
completely wide open because of the DWR, and they're blaming the mule deer and other things on that, and state legislation, all that crap that went on over there. But it's just, I mean, I think there's every state definitely has to tread it a little differently, but I would love to see female sub quotas in every state and every
yeah,
unit
and that should be.
just for the
And they
simple
and
fact.
that's the way we would like to push a sub quota, but
Mhm.
with them, uh, what we call boot hunters, a
Yep.
still hunter, we call them boot
Yep.
hunters out here. Not being able to judge properly,
Oh yeah.
they almost can't do
No.
a sub quota for us.
No. No, you
Or they
can't.
could,
There's
and then if one goes over, it's still shut down.
Yep.
But
Yeah, I think, but I mean, like you said, it's most people can't tell a female from a tom on the ground walking, especially when they're shooting it at a couple hundred yards or
yeah,
whatever they're doing. It's yeah, they have no way to identify it, and that's why hounds are such an efficient tool that I think, once
and our
hopefully.
cats here, it's a different deal. With these cats, they get chased during the study. So we do a study every December,
Mhm.
and we have some houndsmen that come out and they work with Game and Fish, and they tree the cats and do the DNA studies. So that's about as much as our cats see dogs, and it's not a lot.
Yep.
Uh, so the primary way, guys will either walk a cat out or they'll call them in. And
Yep.
most cats that are harvested within a few yards. A
Wow.
lot of the videos that I've seen, they come in and they'll slink in. And I know of a cat that was harvested this last season, and they got it all on film. And this cat literally came in, walked right past them. I mean, they could have reached out and touched that dang thing. And he turned away and they took their shot.
Wow.
But it's like they've been around it so much with this, using electronic calls, that there's guys that are very good at it, and
Yeah.
they've been successful every year. But then there's also guys that want to get out and they don't really know what's going on, but it's an opportunity to get out in the woods. It's the one thing that stays open through that time of year, and they go out with a call and hang
Yeah.
out and see what's up. But we're educating a lot of the cats,
Yeah.
so they might be sitting there, and that lion's been sitting there watching them for the last hour. And it really does. It happens all the time.
Yep.
Guys will get up and they'll leave their set, and there's a lion track right there, and
Mhm.
that cat was just sitting there watching them.
Yeah. Oh, I
So,
believe it. Yeah,
and
that's
they don't tend to have any fear of people or any home developments or anything like that. I live right in the middle of town, and surprising with 7 dogs, I live right here, but they come right down my street all the time. I get lions in my front yard.
That's
You know,
nuts. Yeah, they
so
just don't have that respect for
yeah,
people or
there's
for
nothing to it. They don't.
yeah.
And it's Bart George. Bart George is doing that study
Mhm.
out in that Washington Kalispell area, and I'm really excited to see what he comes out with when his stuff's released from peer review. And I'd really like to get that information to our biologists and that type of stuff, because he's doing those hazing projects and that type of stuff
Yep.
where those lions are really, he's proving that educating them with dogs is beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I agree completely. And I think it goes across the board with lions and bears that way that it's I think it's the most effective tool to educate them to the people aren't okay. Towns aren't okay, houses aren't okay. It
Yeah,
just kind of creates that fear and gets rid of that conflict. I mean, you look at where California's went. They got conflicts with all of them now.
big old conflict.
Oh yeah. Um we'll change gears just a
Yeah.
hair. So I always like to talk about dogs. When I talk about dogs, I like to talk about what when you're looking, and I know you're not like into it for tons and tons of years, but are you looking when you get these dogs, when you're starting them on these lions and stuff, are you wanting more of like a faster dog with a warmer nose, or are you trying for more of a cold nose?
Almost anything that's not a red tick. No. Uh,
Oh yeah. Uh, when you posted that on TikTok the other day, some guy messaged me. They're like, "Dude, this guy's calling you out." I was like, "Oh, I know him. He did it on purpose.
yeah.
It's all good." But they're like, "Oh, we got to rally the troops and get him." I'm like, "Nah, it's good."
That's funny. Uh, no, I like a good cold nosed dog. But I also like. I mean, I like a pack of dogs that's intermixed.
Mhm.
I think everybody pulls their own weight with different things. You might have that cold nosed dog, but you might have a little more medium nosed dog. You don't want to stew over on this track all day long if you don't have to.
Yeah.
And but most of my dogs, I get them out of Utah. The
Mhm.
central Utah area. Uh, and I think they got a pretty good nose for my area. You know,
Yeah.
they're the type of dogs that are used to rolling in the dirt and
Yep.
that type of stuff. And I think that's helped out here pretty beneficial compare. And I'm not saying anybody out here's got bad dogs. There's actually some good lines of dogs here in South Dakota. We've had some houndsmen around for a long time,
Yeah.
and their dogs work really well.
Mhm.
A lot of good bobcat dogs out here, but I just wanted to branch out and get something that wasn't necessarily what everybody else is running.
Yeah. No,
And
I get
these
that.
Walker dogs, Walker Cross dogs that I've got, I would say most of them are a pretty cold nosed dog,
Mhm.
but they don't have the problem with picking their head up and running a track.
Yeah. And that makes a difference. You get some of them cold nosed track driven dogs that sometimes they can't do that. To them it's too hard. They have to go track to track to track
Yeah,
because they're
yeah,
so track driven instead of being able to make that shift and change and pick their head up and roll.
and sometimes you need that dog.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
so like I said, I think I've got a good mesh on what I got going on. If I have to lean on one this way or another this way, they all conform together enough to make a okay pack of dogs, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, I mean, the one thing I've learned over the years is what dog, like I might have a dog that I think is a great dog, a finished dog that works well for me, and I could send him to you, and to you he might not work for what you need.
Yeah,
He's,
absolutely.
he could not, but it's what I expect out of my dogs, and what I want them to do is completely different than the next guy down the road on what he wants out of his dogs.
Yeah,
And and that's why, like, I try not to sell very many dogs. Usually if I keep a dog past 2, it's going to stay because it's earned its right to stay.
yeah,
And that's just the way I am. And I I don't know, I just always hesitate because, like I say, he might not like the way the dog acts, and that dog might be the one that catches everything for me. But for that
yeah,
guy
yeah,
it's different. And I agree. Like I love a good cold nosed lion dog. Like
yeah,
working one in the dirt or even a day old snow track, just watching them work and watching them grind is great. But when it comes to bears, I don't want a cold dog. Like I don't
yeah,
want to
yeah,
run a bear track that's 2 days old, because chances are you're probably not going to catch the sucker.
yeah,
Cold trailing a bear to me is not worth my time unless it's a big bear and you have a kill tag.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if you're looking to train dogs, I mean, go find a good runnable track and
It
just let
just
them
came across
roll.
the road.
Yep, that's the best
Just came across
one.
the road.
Not the one that you watch cross the road, because those are the hardest ones to freaking catch. But the ones that
Oh man, we
cross,
had one of those. We had one of
oh
those. So the first time that I brought my boy up, and it was early in the morning, and he was sleeping in the truck. We were going down the road, and I was like, "Hey man," knocked over on him. I was like, "You better get up." I said, I mean, it's almost daylight. Things are going to start really moving around." And he's like getting up and getting all groggy, and he looks over at me and he's like, "Dad, there's a bear." And I was like, "No, there's not." And he's like, "No, it's back there." So I back up a little bit. Sure as shit, here's this sow just sitting on her butt, probably 200 yards out, just watching us. And
wow,
we turned around, let everybody out. They all seen her go. We ran her right into some private. So we had to grab dogs and leave.
yep,
But yeah, it was funny. He was like, there's a bear. He was just miffed that he even seen
oh
me.
yep. Yeah,
So
I've had 2 bears run across the road right in front of the truck when we've been hunting, and the one was up in Idaho, and it's been, God, well over 8 or 9 years ago, and it was we had just we had caught a bear that morning already, rigged at like 6:30 in the morning, had the bear caught by 7, and we were back to the truck by
yeah, yeah,
7:30, 8 o'clock. It was quick, and I was supposed to be home for my daughter's birthday party that night, and we had a 7-hour drive. So we
yeah,
were like, "Oh, we caught one. We're good. We're gonna go back, clean up camp. We'll be good to go." We're like 300 yards from camp, and this big old bear runs right across the road in front of the truck. And I was hunting with my buddy Jesse, and he goes, "Well, it's up to you. What do you want to do?" I said, "Dude, you can't not do that." so
Okay.
so
What
we
do you mean? What
dumped.
I want to do?
Yeah. So we dumped them, and they took over and they treed it, and we're like, "Oh wow, got it treed, not too bad." We get a couple hundred yards from the tree, and it bails and
Yeah,
takes
yeah.
them on this big ass, like, 5-mile loop.
Got some
And
wind in him and was like, all right, here we go.
oh man, gets them all the way, comes right back and does a circle almost past the other tree. And we're just to the point now, like, we got to go. So, and this bear was dusting these dogs. I mean, they weren't going to catch up. So we pulled them and got back to the truck, cleaned up camp, and we burned home. And I made it home with like 4 minutes to spare.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's just,
Usually
it
how it
always
goes.
usually seems like those ones are like the hardest ones. It's for some reason they know what's coming, so they kick it into high gear, and they're the
Yeah.
worst ones to catch.
Well, and that's how that female was. I mean, she saw them dog, like, she saw us park, and once she seen that, she was like,
Yep.
see you later. She knew what was up. And we probably would have caught her if she would have if we would have kept on going, because we were going to rig that road coming back. We
Yep.
never would have seen her. She would have crossed the road, and we would have had her in an area we could have caught her. But
Yeah.
it
And
was,
you
she went just absolutely the direction she did not need to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard when you're, hunting that fine line between, public and private
Yeah,
too, for sure. And it all depends on the bears in the country, but yeah, it definitely that makes it a different challenge for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm lucky that most of where I've hunted has all been just public for
Just
miles. So
big country.
yeah, just big national forest everywhere.
Yep.
Um, so what you've been? How long have you been into hounds?
Uh, I- into hounds going on 5 years now. Owning my own 4.
Okay,
Uh, so not
so
crazy amount of time.
yeah,
Uh,
long enough that you got the bug if you've got 7 dogs behind the house. So what? And this might be a hard question to answer. What was it for you that just kind of took hold and you were like, I got to do this.
uh,
I got to have this in my life.
I would say the first time that lion that the first lion we treed, the first lion
Yeah.
I treed, I mean, I looked over at my buddy that was the houndsman at the time. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It literally was. It was the coolest thing I've ever done. Uh, and that was a hard cat to catch. So with South Dakota, again, it's not the greatest area to make dogs or be a houndsman at
Yeah.
this time. But the section that we were able to hunt these cats, uh, it was a long cold week. Is middle of February, and we had cold spells coming through. There was -10, -15 the whole week long, and we got out every day. We put probably 40 miles on in a side by side trying to find a track. Couldn't find one, and I went home one night and I took a back road home and I found a lion track, and it wasn't in an area we could hunt, but I knew he was in there and he was kind of boxed in. So
Yep.
every morning I got up and I circled that area and made sure his track wasn't coming out. And it
Hmm.
was 4 days I circled that spot. And finally, on that 4th day, he decided he's going to head south. And he went straight south and went through some neighborhoods. I followed him right through driveways, all that stuff. And he just
Jeez.
kept on going. And once he hit that road, we were allowed to cut dogs loose. We got in there, we let loose on him. And it was just that cold, dusty snow. And at that time, I didn't realize how difficult that type of stuff was for them dogs to follow through. It's
Hmm.
just that frozen. It don't hold no moisture. It ain't hardly nothing for them to smell.
Yep.
And we chased that cat around in there for about 8 hours, and it never left an 800-acre spot. He'd bail out and go hide, and then dogs would kick him up again, and then we treat him. We ended up treating him twice, and then finally got him treed where I was able to get a shot off on him, and
Hmm.
we packed him out of there as usual. And after that, I was hooked completely. I mean, there was no question that I wasn't getting a dog, and I started out with the one, and slowly moved into another, and yeah, now we're sitting here with a whole pack of hounds.
Oh,
So
I understand it. I mean, for me, it was just once the first time I went with them guys that had dogs, and I heard them dogs just bark and watched them try and trail that shitty track that they had. I was in because I had hunted bird dogs. I got my first bird dog when I was like 15,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
I
yeah.
loved hunting behind a bird dog. Just
Yep.
hunting pheasants, did a little duck hunting, but just I loved watching them dogs work. And to me, this was a whole nother step up level that was just that much more that I was like, I'm in. like, like
And
if
I've honestly, I've quit hunting everything else. I don't go deer hunting. I don't
yep,
go antelope. I don't none of that anymore. It just doesn't. There's no desire for me, and I almost feel bad
yeah,
when I'm out doing that stuff and my dogs are sitting in my house.
yeah. Oh, I get it completely. For the
Yeah, I
last
know.
like 12 years, I'm usually gone every fall. This is the first fall I'll be home in 12 or 13 years because I'm usually up in Idaho working on
Yeah,
our
yeah,
elk ranch.
yeah.
So I've never been able to hunt fall bear, never really got to hunt deer or elk for the last 12 years as well because I've always been doing it for someone else. So to me,
Yep.
my hounds were my hunting.
Yeah.
And so now this year I've got a deer tag and all my kids want to go and I'm just like This is weird. It's
Yeah,
it's not
and
normal.
that's who does the shooting around here. My boy, he fills the freezer. Whether
Yeah,
it's meant he's only 11. He'll be able to start hunting with big tags this next year. But
yeah,
South Dakota does a cool thing where you can get mentor tags.
yeah. Yep.
So
We Utah does the same.
yeah, and they can apply at any age. And
Yep.
it's a $5 doe tag. You can get an antelope and a deer.
Hmm.
And he's been shooting antelope since he was 5.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, and he's getting to the point that he's proficient enough at it that I could almost cut him loose
Hmm.
and expect that he's going to be coming back with something.
Yeah.
You know,
Which is awesome. I mean, to be able to start at a young age like that and just to grow and do that. And that's one thing I'm trying to remember who I was talking with this about, but just like these young kids that grow up around these hounds and this lifestyle and they go with it, it's almost like it gives them a sense of confidence and a
yeah,
sense of like, oh, we get to do this, we get to go to school, tell cool stories, we get to do all this stuff, but it's just almost like it grabs a hold of them and gives them a whole different skill set in life that's just
yeah,
pretty damn awesome.
absolutely.
So that's one thing I've really noticed, especially with my boy. I think he's close to the same age. He's 10. He'll be
Yeah, yeah,
11 soon.
yeah.
And to hear him talk to some of my buddies and stuff about what's going on with the dogs and this dog's doing this. I mean, you'd think he
He
has his own
understands
pack.
it.
Yeah, oh yeah, you'd think he'd have his own pack of dogs. I mean, he's
Yeah,
been
and
going.
and they're going to be so much further ahead than we ever were.
Oh, what? And that's like you and I are both first generation houndsmen. I didn't grow up with it. I didn't get
Yeah,
my
yeah,
first hound till I was 19 years old.
yeah,
And yeah, I look at like my buddy that I'm good friends with, that he's a fourth generation. So he's been around it his entire life. His dad's been around it his entire life, and the wealth of knowledge they have is amazing. But it's crazy to see this kid pick up on it, and he'll go have a conversation with my buddies that have been hunting their whole life, and it's like watching two old houndsmen talk, and here
yeah.
I am, the little kid in the background.
Well, for him, it's been his whole life.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, he's never not had dogs around. I mean, none of my kids have. I had dogs before any of them were born, and
Yeah,
it's it's crazy. And I'm sure it gets that way with deer hunters. I mean, I grew up, my dad hunted deer. My dad and my brother love hunting deer. They don't own hounds, but to me, I just never took a hold to it like I did these
yeah,
dogs.
yeah, for sure.
Definitely something different. I mean, it's, for lack of a better word, even though I hate the word, it's a horrible addiction. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly what it is.
it's not
Unfortunately,
the word I like to use around it, but it really is like you
it's one of
live
the better
for it.
addictions you can have.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, unless you're talking financially, but like it's just it gets in you, and it's hard not to want to just go every weekend or every free minute or things like that. And luckily, I'm blessed enough, that my kids love it and they want to go, and that makes
Yeah,
it
yeah,
easier on the family aspect of it and everything like that as
yeah.
well.
It can be tough.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
was, I was, I was pretty fortunate. My wife was very understanding
Yeah.
on this Idaho thing. I've never been able to hunt this much throughout the summer months,
Oh, it's
just because
it.
my dogs get put away, and they don't
Yep.
necessarily get put away. We hunt a lot of raccoons normally.
Yeah.
It's close to home,
Yeah.
and uh, this was kind of a. I wouldn't say it's a once in a lifetime experience. I'll definitely still be putting in for Idaho, but we all know how easy and not easy that tag is to get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Uh,
70 of them statewide. It's
yeah.
pretty not way common to draw it all the time.
So, but it was definitely a game changer on what I've been able to do with my dogs this year.
Oh yeah. Well, that's like to get out and just go camp and be able to hunt for 4, 5, 6, 7 days in a row or something. You really that gives them dogs an opportunity to grow immensely versus just being able to hunt one day on a weekend here, one day on a weekend
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Picking
Like,
up every day doing the exact same thing.
yeah,
Where
yep.
eat, go to
Like,
bed, wake up, do it all over again.
yeah, that's where I found my dogs in the last 5-6 years, every spring and every summer, I've been able to spend a month in the spring and a month in the summer just living on the mountain hunting bears
Yeah, yeah,
almost every day. And it took my dogs from this level to a whole nother level that was just unreal for me. Like
yeah.
it made good dogs great dogs, and
Yep.
brought from pups to good dogs and stuff like that, just because it's constant. I mean, I got to the point where I would have to give them a break because their feet needed it, they needed it, we
Yeah.
couldn't. And that was the hard part for me. I'm like, nah, like, we're here, let's
Yeah,
go.
exactly. And
But
I ran into that where, that goose dog I was talking about with Steven, I could start to tell that he was getting tired, because
yeah.
I was relying on him so much. And but anytime we rolled over a bear trap or anything like that, man, that dog perked up like no other.
Yep.
And there's no quit. There's no quit in him.
And
But
that's
he'll come back just dragging.
oh
When he's
yeah.
done. When he's done. But it it was definitely just a different type of hunting for me.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing I think a lot of people that aren't part of this world don't realize, that these dogs love it so much they will damn near kill themselves trying, because they enjoy it so much. Like, a dog that's completely dead ass tired will perk right up
Yeah.
and run his ass off just to try and catch that bear, even though he knows he doesn't have it in him.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just there. It's crazy how much they love it, and I think that's what draws me into it so much more, is just the desire they have just fuels mine even more and just ingrains it.
Yeah, yeah. For sure.
So awesome. Well, we're getting kind of close. I usually end with a favorite hunt or a favorite dog, whether it's a young dog, old dog, dog that's gone on, that you just want to talk and highlight about. I like to
Yeah.
hear about either a favorite hunt or just a phenomenal dog.
Oh, I got a lot of good hunts. I guess I mean, in all reality, my favorite hunt up to this point was the second time I made it out of Idaho. I was able to bring my daughters out,
Yeah.
and we had at that time I've got a good buddy over in southeastern Idaho, and he's got kids right about the same age as mine. He's got two that were under 4, and also had a little baby the same age as ours at the time. And we got all those kids up under a tree, and it was the first tree that my youngins had been to, and my wife had been to, and it was a good bear. She hung out for a long time. She liked to bounce up and down the tree. It was good for my dogs at the time, and we came into that tree, and it was a long ways away, and
Hmm.
we could see the bear peeking through, and my daughter was on my shoulder, peeking up and over, and she's like, "Oh, Dad, he's cute. Don't shoot him. He's cute." And at that point, regardless of what the bear was, it could have been the biggest dang bear you'd ever seen, and we wouldn't have killed it.
Yep.
It was just it was a good time, good moment. The kids got to enjoy it, and it really clicked for her because I've been hunting ever. I mean, she's never not known me hunt, and she's 2 now.
Yeah.
But we've gone out with raccoons and all that, but seeing that bear up in the tree really was different for her. And
Yeah.
now, anytime we go, like she's up and at him. Where's the bear at? Where's the bear? And we're not even going after bear. We're going to chase raccoon, but we're going bear hunting every time now.
Yep. Oh, I get
So
it.
it was a lot
No,
of fun.
that's one thing. Like when I first, it's been like 6 7 years ago, like when I first started like the hunting fam with that
Yep.
Instagram and stuff, that's what I really wanted to push out there, was the kids and all of that. Because for the first half of my time I'd had hounds, I didn't really include them, and
Yeah.
I regret that. And then once I started to, I realized how much more like special they made it being there, and
Yeah.
it
Absolutely.
changed my whole perspective. So I totally get that completely.
And with Cold Strike and that the hunting fam and all that's a lot of stuff that I'd seen early on,
Mhm.
and it helped with that.
Yeah.
Involving the family in this type of stuff, and making those types of memories, and doing that. Those you get a lot of this with Colorado, and they say you're trophy hunting and you're doing all this, and that, like, those are my trophies. Those memories, those photos.
Yep.
I'd much rather see those than a dead lion on my wall or a dead bear. You know,
Exactly.
I'm not opposed to killing anything as
No.
long as it's a healthy harvest. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm after.
Oh,
I'm not
exactly.
after catching the biggest, baddest every time and whatever. If we can get a smile on a face of somebody that's never seen a lion, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what's going to help us save what we got going on here.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's like to me, those are the best. Those trophies is those kids, those pictures, or watching that young dog click it on and take it and make a phenomenal dog or something like that. That's what it's truly about. That a lot of people just don't really understand. They don't realize that 75% of us are nothing but catch and release
Yeah,
houndsmen. I mean, we're glorified fishermen. you know, we
right.
catch and release. I don't, and it's really just truly about spending time with the family and spending time with the dogs and making a dog and really just watching all that progress
Yeah,
instead of just the kill because it ain't that's
I
not what
like to
it's
tell
for.
people that when they ask me, because I don't ever post anything that's harvested with myself or whatever. I've never killed anything over my dogs other than a raccoon,
Yep.
and and I look at it is that I guess I've never done that over my dogs, but I've made a lot of other people's dreams come true.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy taking the people that you know there's people that can afford to go lion hunting, and then there's just people that like to be out, and
Yeah.
I like to bring that guy that he's not going to be able to go out and buy a $5,000-6,000 lion hunt,
Yep.
and that's because that's who I was. That's who I was when I was picked up from a houndsman, and he took me out. There was no desire to get any money out of me. It was just a friendship and to go out and have fun.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know,
I get it for sure. And I mean, that's how I was. I mean, I wasn't ever didn't have a tag in my pocket the first time I went, but it was just guys that took me out because I wanted to go, and it was, I mean, history from there. I mean, yeah, I'm grateful for that every time I think about it. But it truly is just that. So I think some people overcomplicate it and try and make it more about the kill than it ever
yeah.
truly has been, for
It
sure.
makes it no fun when it turns into that. In my opinion, not
I
not
agree.
bashing on nobody's ways or how they like to do it. Whatever.
No, no.
I like leaving with a big old Tom every now and then too. But the most of it is I enjoy the people, I enjoy the dogs, and just the time being outside.
Yep. Oh, I agree. So, speaking of dogs, what's that one dog that's kind of stuck out for you over the past few years?
Uh, well, it's always I've always really relied on my Dora female that I got out of Chase Oliver. She's always been really honest and done really well. But I've recently gone a different direction, and I picked up a dog from Stephen Lee,
Hmm.
and just happened he had a litter, and I got in on it, and we drove out with family and picked up this pup out of California. That was a trip. We made a vacation out of it. We went up north and hung out with some family, and then made our way down south and picked him up and brought him home and got him hunting. We got him on a couple of lions as a pup and all that. And then I took him up into Montana, and that dog was striking on everything.
Hmm.
Anything and everything that he was coming across. And he was always coming across the track, whether it was a deer or it was a bobcat or lion or skunk, porcupine, anything and everything across the road, he was striking on it. And I noticed that was different than a lot of the stuff that I've ran. And not that that stuff doesn't have that ability. I've just always hunted differently. And I started leaning on that dog striking on stuff, and we fine tuned it, and got him broke off of deer and all the other junk, and he's really turning into a pretty good dog. He's still young, lots to work through, but he's doing everything right at his
Hmm.
age, and I relied on him a lot through bear season, and I think he's gonna end up being something real special.
Ah, that's
Uh,
awesome.
so I'm really excited about him.
Yeah. Well, like we were talking earlier, to be able to do what he's doing and use him and rely on it. And, to put game up at just a year old is
Yeah.
that I think that's going to be a pretty
And
special
I'm
dog.
not saying anything crazy,
Yeah.
with me, I know a lot of guys catch a lot more bears than I do, but I've never done it. And we've seen 6 of them this year.
Yeah.
And to me, putting something up every month that's big game was important to me.
Oh,
It
yeah.
might not be 120 bears, 200 bears in a season, but
you're not living
driving
on the
700
mountain.
miles to
Yeah.
get to bear country, I tow my little truck behind me and my rooftop tent on my truck, and we base camp out of that, and we're ready. We can be hunting the second we pull up, but it's still a trip.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I had a lot of help from a lot of locals. So there's a lot of great guys. I mean, Idaho is just full of really good houndsmen, and they all took me under their wing, and I learned everything that I could about bear in a short amount of time. Just not doing it before, I'd gone down and ran with Chase one other time down in Utah. I actually almost met up with you that time down there, but you guys were moving camp.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, it's been real fun, and I think he's gonna turn out to be a good dog.
Yeah,
I hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, he's got the makings in it. He's showing signs of it for now. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how he does through this lion season. You have to keep me updated.
Oh, for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hopping on, talking dogs with me, and
yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully we'll catch up on the mountain sometime.
Yeah, we'll meet up and do some hunting. It needs to happen. So
awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, later.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Hound Talk podcast with the Cold Strike crew. If you like what we're doing, like, subscribe, give us a review. It means a lot to us. Thank you for your support. Now go load them dogs and take the kid hunting.